A lot of the environmental issues are stemming from generations before us. We were born like 2 decades ago. Like we weren't the ones that created the problem. So there is that feeling of, why am I having to suffer the problems that were caused by the people that are older than us?
If I see you and I like you, you go on my Instagram, you wait for me to post a story, like story, like story, like story, like when is this guy going to text me? You don't go to a person like, it's my, like, you wanna go for a coffee? No. And nowadays, if it's the other way around, if you text me like, do you want to go for a coffee? I'm like, who's this creep?
I would say I am addicted to my phone. As soon as I don't have my phone in my hand, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Okay. Wow. Just wow. You guys are really dropping some massive humdingers today. There are billions of women passing through similar experiences all around the world, and for whatever reason, we often feel like we're alone. It's time to make a point of discussing these topics from a range of viewpoints. Women in the workplace, fertility, the menopause, women's rights, social media, sexuality, body image, politics, relationships, parenting, age, and women in their role today. These conversations surpass age, race, location. They are relevant to women everywhere. Welcome to the She Word. Conversations that women rarely have, but really should.
There is one idea that makes life just an okay life. It is that everything moves in one straight line. But we have a different idea about life, where you can start over every day. A circular journey. At Browns, we curate for that journey, for you to find your better self, your more confident self, healthier self, comfortable self. Start your journey today. Find your way to wellness with Browns.
Welcome to the She Word, conversations that women rarely have, but really should. And today's conversation is women and the future. And I'm so excited to be having some really fantastic and powerful conversations with three very dynamic young women. I'm joined by Althea Gatt, who is studying dance at the University of Malta. I'm also joined by the most wonderful Antonella Bugeja, grad student studying a master's in biomedical sciences, which is neuroscience, and also Mariah Mangion with the jazz hands, with those jazz hands, who's studying law at the University of Malta. And I have been looking forward to this show for a really long time. So a huge welcome to you ladies.
Thank you.
Hello.
Well, hello, Althea. And I'm excited because we're talking about women of the future. We're talking about you as young women, and we're talking about something that I am really excited to learn about. So we're going to be talking about what your dreams are, what your fears are, but I want to start off just by asking you, if you can, define it in just a few words what you feel it's like being a young woman in 2022. And I'm going to dump you right there in the deep end, Althea. But if you could sort of summarize what it feels like to be a woman in 2022.
Let me see. I think I would say being in 2022, we have a lot of privileges which weren't there before, which we sometimes don't even acknowledge. But there is also more to go. So I feel like there are times when I walk in the street and I don't entirely feel safe because I am a female. So even though we have come a long way, I still feel there is way more to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a hefty opener. Okay, let's come to you, Antonella. A few words to describe what it's like being a young woman in 2022.
Okay, so I think it's exhilarating, yet terrifying. I think that we have so many opportunities that, like 10, 20 years ago, they didn't have. I mean, phones, social media, globalization, like we can travel to anywhere, But at the same time, as Althea said, like there are still some things that are not yet improved enough. I mean, there was the Colorado mass shooting yesterday in the gay club, which is insane. So it's like, it's exciting. There's so much potential. There's so much happening, but there's so much to be done as well. So it's a bit of like both, you know?
And you just touched on so many things in that one answer to the question, because you also talked about social media, phones, traveling, and women in the position today. And you talked about this mass shooting as well. And we'll come to all of that because that's totally relevant. Aha, Mariah, with the jazz hands.
Yeah.
Define for me what you feel like it's being a woman, a young woman in 2022.
Well, honestly, I have to agree with what they said. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful to be a woman in 2022, but it's absolutely scary as well. Like, there are so many things. Like, for example, if I dress too modestly and I post a picture on Instagram, it's like, oh, she's too modest, she's a prude. But the second I show a bit of my bum, like, oh, what a WHORE, if you will, just so I don't say the word. Like,
You
know
can
what I
say
mean?
that, that's fine.
Just so they don't think I'm a whore, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like this constant battle with yourself, which like trying to show off your femininity, trying to show off like, yes, it's me, I have this body. I'm starting to love my body because there's body image is a whole other different conversation. But
Oh,
at
no,
the
we're
same-
having that
Okay,
one.
great.
Okay, that's on him.
But at the same time, it's this constant battle with yourself. Just like as I said, like I cannot show myself too much, but I cannot show myself too little. I can't speak out too much because they say, oh, she's so aggressive. But the second I keep my mouth shut, oh, she has no opinion. Maybe she's stupid. And like, whoa, what do I do?
So
Summary.
again, you've just touched on a whole bunch of topics that we're going to talk about over the next 40 minutes or so. And we're going to kind of break out and look at where you guys are at. Because I am very, very happy to say I have no idea what it would be like to be a young person in your position in 2022. I would have been where you're at maybe, dare I say, 30 years ago. And things were very different. We didn't even have social media then. We didn't even have mobile phones then. So it was a very different world. And I'm really excited about this show. I'm probably one of the most exciting shows that we've had in the season. But I'm going to start by touching that you ladies are all studying for your careers. You're studying at the moment. And you're looking forward to the future. You've chosen where you want to be going. What excites you most about your future as you as an individual? Forget about society for a second, but you as an individual, for a very personal perspective. For example, Antonella, you're studying a master's in neuroscience. What excites you about your future? You, Antonella.
Okay, so actually, my neuroscience dissertation is going to be investigating the neural activity of sexual arousal, which in Malta.
Sorry, the whole table's just
Can you say that in English?
Yeah, like in Malta, when I came up with the idea, everyone was like, why are you doing this to yourself? It's sexual arousal, it's Malta, it's not talked about, like
Yeah,
all
that's
that,
true.
you know. But I fought for it. I was like, no, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm doing, and that's it, you know. And yeah, so for me, I love sexual health and mental health. And basically, I don't know where, like which country or what job I'm going to have in the future, but I know that I want it to be related to sexual health and mental health because they're stigmatized and they're things I'm passionate about. But I'm just excited to travel, to experience different realities, you know, in different countries and sing as well and just dance and just really live life to the fullest, you know, like with all the good and bad experiences.
Isn't she an all-rounder?
Well, first of all, because Mariah, we both looked at each other and went, wow, we're talking about sexual neurology and so on and so forth. And we're both like, woof. For you, you're studying law, which may be a little more
Wait for it. She's coming to it.
acceptable. You're studying law, but what excites you about what you've chosen to do? And are you planning to travel and everything as well?
Yes, definitely. First of all, I would just want to say how amazing it is because in Malta, sex talk is just absolutely hush hush and you don't know how to put a condom on and it's like, it's like you don't know what a vagina is. Like, okay,
She's
going for it.
This show is going to take in a whole new turn. Do I need to tell you ladies about that?
I mean, so it's kudos to you because it's absolutely amazing what she is doing. With regards to me, I decided to pursue law because I just feel like, law-wise, I feel like as progressive as we are sometimes still a bit old in our mentality. I mean, and plus, there's a lot to fight for, especially women's rights. I mean, I'm not gonna go into it, but there's a lot of with IVFs and abortion and all of that stuff. And I just want to be that person that's not gonna say no, you're wrong, no, you're right. I don't care, but I want to be that person that I will help you, give you the voice. I will be there for you to support you legally, morally. I just want to be the voice.
I can't wait to see you in 10 years' time. Can we do this show again in 10 years'
Absolutely.
time?
Let
I
me
want to
put it
see
in my
where, I mean,
calendar.
already I'm excited by you two ladies. And now I'm coming to Althea because I know that performing arts and dance has been a passion of yours for a very long time. And we'll talk about the pandemic in a few minutes. But obviously that has had an impact on what you're doing. But now here you are studying
Yes.
and you're pursuing your dream. So is this what is exciting you? Is this what gets you up in the morning?
I mean, to me, it was, I always had school and I always did my extracurriculars on the side. So I would dance, I sing, musical theatre, and all of that. And in Malta, it's always, okay, that's your hobby. Now you need to find your job, like your career, your path. That was always the mentality I had. But the more I grew up, most people start dropping out. They're like, okay, now it's time for me to focus. I need to get my schoolwork done and I don't have time for my extra stuff anymore. But to me, it was like, I don't want to stop this. It's just not even passion or love for it. I need it. It's part of me. I wouldn't be me if I don't dance, if I don't go on stage, because I just feel like it gives me life, if I could say that. So for me, the fact that I have the opportunity to study dance, because this wasn't there. I think the course started 12 years ago. So it's fairly new. So most people didn't even have the opportunity to study dance. So to me, just the fact that I can pursue something I love, to put it simply, is just crazy.
Well, I'm super pleased for you as well because you're obviously very, very excited, and I'm very hopeful for all three of you. Now, before we come to some more of these sort of socio questions about the society and so on, I want to just touch on one thing because we're heading towards the end of 2022. And for the most part, we've kind of forgotten about the pandemic, which has impacted us massively for the last 3 years. And before we sat down to chat, Mariah, you said something really massive about the pandemic. And I think it's really worth for any of us who are not your age, who have not just gone through your version of the pandemic, to just be respectful and mindful of what you've just gone through.
What I said that with the pandemic, that being from 2020 till, beginning of this year,
Yeah.
I think me as an 18-year-old, I missed 16 and 17. I didn't, fulfill those years. And I just feel like those were very crucial years for me and for people my age. And then you said oh, because for you it's not whatever. So you know what I mean?
You
It's
actually
crazy.
said you'd missed out on the best
yeah.
years.
And then you were
No,
saying
and I probably did what most people my age would do, which is kind of slightly poo-poo that. And for that, I apologize because when I think back to when I was 16 and 17 and 18, you're absolutely right. Those were very important years. And you guys spent that
at home.
at home.
Yeah.
And so do you feel as well, Antonella, you've missed out on the best years?
Yes. I mean, for me, I had just turned 18. When I was young, I was really I would never go out. I was more of a homebody and I had some mental health struggles. So I was focusing on that. And I still remember a week before everything shut down, I was like, I am going to start going out. I am going to live my life. I had just started a relationship with my first ex-girlfriend. And a week before, and she was from Denmark as well. So everything closed down, airports closed down. I had to move back to Gozo. My life fell apart in a week's time. And I mean, starting a long distance thing in COVID, the moment COVID starts is a scary thing in itself. And so, yeah, so those 2 years were just a bit of a mess. But although I do agree with you that they were like my best years gone, I did take it as an opportunity to grow personally and kind of deal with my mental health struggles and get better. And so I am a bit grateful for them as well, because like being forced to be with yourself is something that we don't have time for nowadays. Like we're so busy. There's so much pressure to
Jesus
be
Christ.
and do everything, that it was kind of a break that was needed in a way as well.
Say that again. No, because sometimes people on this show say something that's really profound, and just as you said, you'd missed out on the best years. You just said that we don't have time for we don't
Yeah,
make time for
we don't.
ourselves. You guys are 21 and 18 years old. Do you really feel like you don't have time to?
Definitely.
There is no
I
time.
wish
Yeah.
I had the time to sit down and, simply do some skincare and simply,
Yes.
unwind. Because at the back of my mind, especially starting this law course, I'm like, Lalo, this episode of Friends, how nice is it? Oh, wait, I need to read Constitution law.
Yes.
Oh, shit, never mind, let me read. So I never have that, like,
No,
moment.
sweetness. Friends should always win. Sorry, but
Tell that to our
Constitution
lecturer.
law to one side
Yeah,
for
but
an episode of Friends.
that is the truth. Like, there comes to a point where I'm like, do I meet my friends or do I study? And then if I meet my friends and I go back home, I had a great time, I'm in my bed, I'm like, that just cost me my
Yes.
future.
The
And I'm in
guilt.
an existential crisis constantly. Like,
I'm going to come to you. I'm talking to you ladies, and suddenly these massive questions are just coming out from the first 5 minutes of this conversation. But for you, I know that obviously you're studying performing arts, you're studying dance, which means that for the last 2 years, you've not been able to perform or to be on a stage to experience any of that. And that's your passion. That's what you want.
I mean, talking about the pandemic, just as Mariah said, they are listening to my parents. They're like, oh, because my graduation and my last few days at fifth form and starting sixth form, they're the memories that my parents look back on and they're like, this was the best time of my life. So I got really sad. I was like, it's not fair that this time is being taken away from me and I don't have an option. I didn't have a graduation. I didn't graduate from fifth form. We were lucky to have a prom, at least. We got to do that. But it was almost a mixture of being sad and being angry, because I was so angry that it's taken away from me. I don't have a choice. I have to stay at home, whether I like it or not. I can't see my friends. I can't go out. It started out as sadness, but as time went on, at least for me, I just got angrier and angrier. I was like, this is not fair. So I got into that.
and I think that we've all grown up with, and I'm going to say something really silly, but something that affected me. We've all grown up watching High School Musical and
Yes.
stuff like that.
That
and we're all
too.
like, yes, senior, you're going to wear and boop, nothing. Bye. Absolutely. We have a tradition at my school, at Handa. Shout out to them. I love them all. They're so great.
Just hands.
Yay. We have a tradition that our tracksuit jacket, we paint it with anything we like. So if you're really into rock music, you put a guitar on your back. You're like Mariah Mangion, class of 2020. I had a phase that I really loved SpongeBob for some odd reason. I was like always retweeting memes and stuff like that. And I look back at my jacket, it's still hanging in the washroom upstairs and it's like half painted, and I'm just like, it breaks my heart every time, because we've romanticized this era in our life for so long. I can recall all the High School Musical lyrics. I was so looking forward to it. Then just gone.
But you also said, Mariah, you said about the fact that you are now having to create a balance between studying, and you're all studying, you're all seriously studying, and being out with your friends. And of course, now that you're saying it, I'm thinking back to when I was your age and that 16, 17, just before your final year of A-levels. Of course, we weren't very serious about that year. We were out having a good time and experimenting and enjoying, your first time you go out and get yourself a little bit wasted and these sorts of things. And now you've just said you have to go in to
Yeah.
study full time and make that balance.
And the thing is that I think, with going back to what I said about the crucial ages, I think those are the ages where you can relax a little bit. Where if it's like, Isma, you did that, that's a bit bad, but it's not the end of the world. You can, so it's the time where you lash out. Now you can't lash out because it's like serious. Now you get in trouble. For me, I get in trouble on my criminal record. You can't be a lawyer anymore. Bye bye. So you know what I mean? It's
Well, I would try and avoid anything on your criminal record anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but
General.
there's a especially like with the law course, it's all about knowing people. It's a fame contest, you know, being a lawyer, and you know, there's a certain age where like you can dismiss any malicious behavior for just being a young, reckless kid. Oh, she knows nothing; she'll grow to mature. But now you're mature. We have, I think we all have this suppressed child inside that wants to
Yes,
rage
yes.
out. I mean, responsibly, and but we can't because now we're adults now. We
Because even
can't.
like the year between fifth form and sixth form, it's the 1 year where you're not continuing school. There's no schoolwork, there's no studying, there's nothing to work
Because
on.
it's a new chapter.
Because usually between years, like if you're going from form 4 to form 5, you still have like your summer work and you still have to study and make sure you remember everything from the previous year. But going into sixth form, it's like blank slate. You have a summer to do whatever you want.
And there's the beauty
And
of
we
it,
didn't
but
get
we didn't
that summer.
have it.
well, moving on from something you said, and I'm going to come to you, Antonella, because you're the oldest on the table, well, apart from me, but you're the oldest on the table from this group, and you are now studying a master's. So I will come to ask each of you this question, but following on from what was said before, do you feel the pressure to be someone, to accomplish, to be accepted amongst your peers, to be the best that you can? Or are you happy? You mentioned before about traveling and you're not quite sure where this is going to take you, but do you feel this pressure to be something and someone?
I feel it every day. There's so much pressure to just be perfect, you know. But the thing is, I learned to love being imperfect because so I entered the medicine course, which is like the science equivalent to the law course. You know, there's so much pressure. There's like, there's the idea that you lose your social life. Like I remember one person had said, I remember we were in a meeting once and one person said, but in our 5 years of studying medicine, we have no social life. And then they expect us to be social human beings again. And I remember hearing that and saying, no, like that is not the life I want to have. And so I went into the course and I studied, but I prioritized traveling, meeting friends. Like I finished my dissertation a few months ago in an exchange in Slovenia. I refused to stay in Malta and I told my supervisor and he was like, you're crazy. And I was like, I know, but I'm doing it. And I did. And now I'm getting robed by the rector of the university. So I'm like a bit of a fuck you to the people who said I can't do it, you know?
As it should be, no? I mean,
But it's like, I think there is so much pressure, but it depends on you as well to figure out what you want in your life. Like for me, I mean, life is what we have. Our career is a part of our life, but we need to be happy and we need to feel fulfilled in what we're doing, you know? And that's what I try to remind myself every day when the pressure gets too much. But there's pressure from parents, from school, from social media, everywhere. And being with our phones all the time, it's like you're being watched all the time. Like, and everyone knows you have your phone all the time. So even the pressure to text people quickly. Like I tell my close friends, I'm like, I'm sorry if I don't reply in 2 days, but I'm not a big texter, you know? But you feel that you have your phone and you're watched. You feel like you're never truly just living in the moment, you
and
know?
I think you said something about happiness. I think that nowadays secondary responsibilities, being studying, being active on social media, all this stress and stuff, became primary responsibilities, when your primary responsibility should be yourself and your happiness. The mentality is nowadays, I'd rather have all the likes and the perfect body and be extremely upset than be a little less popular maybe, but be happy. That's the mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
is,
even
it is.
relating that to school, I remember times when I would like stay up till 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning studying. 5 a.m. I have to wake up to school or doing my schoolwork till those hours. I was compromising my health. I was tired. I was going to school tired, sleeping on the bus, sleeping between like lessons, 5-minute naps. It's horrible. It's not something you should be doing to yourself. But we start to say, I can't be a bad student. I can't not do this to my full capability. I won't give 80% if I can give 100. But
Because
sometimes,
what will people think about me if I give my
Because
my
if,
80
'cause
and
if I
not my
always
100?
get this certain mark, I don't get this mark just for once. I need to keep on reaching that.
So let me be a devil's advocate for a second, because you only get to live this life once. This is not a trial run. And you ladies have already missed out on 2.5 years of your life and 2.5 years of the years that you'll never get back. Who is telling you that you have to get that grade? Who is telling you that you have to be that person on social media? Who is telling you that you need to get back to your friends within 15 minutes? Who?
It's the society.
I think society in general push it upon you. I remember my parents when I was young. Okay, so in your last like final exams, you need to get everything 80 and over. If you get 90 and over, even better. We'll buy you presents for it. Which it was an
The
encouraging
validation of
thing.
exciting.
But I was like, okay, if I got 80 plus this time, I need to get like 85 plus the next time. And you kind of start competing. You're like, I want to do even better. Like if I got a present this time, imagine what I'll get next time.
But your family is not society. Your family is
But-
family. So who is society? Is this your peers? Is this your
It's everyone.
teachers?
It's everyone in a different way.
It's everyone. Everyone putting in it a little bit of that stress, like the academic validation. Today you got 85. Oh, that's not an 86 though.
But who said that?
Even
My
teachers.
parents, but then you see friends, you're like, Lallu, how good you went, you got an 86, Mrs. X. She's like, yeah, oh, but Mariah got an 85, so she's less, but for a mark, Jesus Christ. And you're constantly fighting yourself, but I want that 86. Why can I not have that 86? And it's a constant fight with yourself, even like, so I posted the same picture like hers, just with maybe a different shirt. And how did she get 1,000 likes and I got 500 likes? And
Oh, well, that's a big topic we're going to come to in a second. But coming to you, because you're about to say something.
I think this is the thing as well, though. What society tells us, we have internalized. So in reality, at this point, apart from the societal pressure, it's ourselves. Like we have been hearing, get a 90 instead of an 80 or instead of a 70, and do this for so long that now we put the pressure on ourselves. Even if we surround ourselves with the most ideal people that do not care and tell you whatever you do is fine, that internal voice has been engraved in us since such a young age that it is so hard to break through, And I've been trying to do that in therapy for so many different things, but it doesn't go away that easily because it's been there for so long. And the fact that we're on social media, we're seeing everyone's perfect lives, and then we're stuck with our imperfect lives all the time. Like, so how can you not feel like it's impossible to not feel unworthy sometimes because
So we're going to come to social media because you've all mentioned it during this last 5 minutes. You mentioned social media, and it's something I mentioned it before. I've said I didn't grow up with social media. I started working in London in 1997, and there was not even the internet. There was no websites. Seriously.
You're one lucky person.
Thank you.
Say that because it's with everything. And today, you cannot do anything without using the internet. Today, even dating. If I see you and I like you. You go on my Instagram, you wait for me to post a story, like story, like story. Like, when is this guy going to text me? You don't go to a person like, it's my like, you wanna go for a coffee? No. And nowadays, if it's the other way around, if you text me like, do you want to go for a coffee? I'm like, who is this creep?
Yeah. Yes.
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 I'm sorry. Hang on a sec. Okay, first, okay, we're going to come to the whole creepy coffee thing in a second. But coming back, because you mentioned, Mariah, just a second ago, you said if you don't get 1,000 likes on your picture, then you haven't achieved. Okay, I mean, I post, okay, and I like it when people appreciate my post, but I'm probably less driven by that than maybe yourselves, because you are absolutely right. I consider myself lucky that I grew up in a time where there wasn't social media. I've grown into this, and quite frankly, you know, I'm still at the point where I go, can someone tell me how do I do this? Because I'm at that point. Having that pressure that you've described, I've never had 1,000 likes, and I'm never going to have 1,000 likes. But does that, I mean, I'm asking this question and I know the answer because I know how I feel now. I just probably feel like it's escalated 1,000 for yourselves because you've always had it. But does it really matter? If you post a picture, does it really matter?
I would be lying if I said it doesn't matter. Okay, because really and truly, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything in my life. But, you know, it sucks. It's like you're the black sheep. You know what I mean? It's like, oof, wait, I wanted the validation of it. I mean, what?
That's the word, validation.
Yep. It's
But
everything.
who validates you? These people are not even people you know.
Exactly. That's the point. You are validated. You are impressing someone so much they don't even have to know you.
Wow. You ladies, you feel the same?
I agree. But I also think that because of social media and everything, we forgot that the person that we need to feel validated from the most is ourselves. And I think that we forgot that. And that's why it becomes so difficult, because we forget self-love. There's no time and energy for self-love anymore and self-validation. We just seek it from outward sources, from social media, from likes. And I think that becomes a problem as well, you know?
New Max Stack Mascara. Stack. 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 Max Stack.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question then, based on what we've just said, Antonella's just said. Althea, if we don't have time, if you don't have time for self-love, but you have time for socials, is that not just a misappropriation of time management?
Yes. I think it's because I look at myself. I would say I am addicted to my phone. As soon as I don't have my phone in my hand, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. It's crazy because everything is on my phone. If I need to talk to someone, if I need to call someone, if I want to look at photos, everything is on my phone. So I'm constantly on it. Sometimes I'll just open an app and close it and open another one and close it because it's just the feeling of having my phone in my hand. So it is definitely time wasted, but it's kind of like this addiction that even if I'm watching a movie, I'll still keep my phone in my hand, or I'll still like be scrolling through Instagram, not even looking at it, but just having my phone in my hand, which is horrible. So I feel like if we could get this idea that it's okay to leave it there, or if there's notification and I can't get to it, I start losing my mind in a lecture. If my phone rings and I can't instantly like turn and see it, it's this feeling of like, but I need to know and I need it. It's like a safety blanket. So if we had to use our time better, we could definitely find more time for ourselves, even though it's not as easy as just saying, find more time. Because a lot of people are just like, but if you have time to do this, you have time to do that. But it's not as easy as just saying it. It's a mental confusion.
And the mentality is that I know it's wrong, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's like junk food. I love McDonald's. I like chowing down on a big Mac and just absolutely going ham over it. Like I will be destroying it in 2 minutes, vanish, gone. Lalo, where did the Big Mac go? It's in my tummy now. But it's not right. Like, and that's the problem.
But I think it is also a challenge, a good challenge to fight these ideas that we have. When I had just turned 18. I went to a silent retreat for a week, which meant no phone, no talking to anyone, just me and myself for an entire
I
week.
could not do that.
Me.
I-
Would not
I could never.
me. You are one brave. Oh no.
To
I
be
go
fair,
mad, Nasib.
I was also I thought this is either gonna kill me or make me stronger, one of the two, you know. And I remember in the first day, I kept a tally, like like if I was in prison, you know, I kept a tally of every time I wanted to use my phone. Instead of using it, I wrote a line. And the first day, I remember it was like 70 times. I was so tempted, you know. And by the end, it was like maybe 5 times. Like, because this is what we're used to. But when you challenge what you're used to, that's where growth comes in. That's where you're out of your comfort zone and something good will happen. And I mean, I still look back at that silent retreat as one of the best experiences of my life. I didn't want to talk to anyone after that week. I was so used to my routine and myself that, you know, like I think this is what we're used to, and it's sad, but we also do have the power to challenge it here and there and experiment with it, you know, and also find the beauty of social media as well, because like everything else, it has its ups and it has its downs, you know. I mean, if it didn't have its ups,
It
we
wouldn't be
wouldn't
there.
use it
I
as
think
much.
I think the problem with us is that we all have the power. It's just we're living in such a fast life that it only a certain of us, like you, which by the way, well done. Only a certain of us have the power to sit down with themselves and say, okay, I'm going to use this power. Like, oh no, my life's too fast. I have to do this. F the silent retreatment. Who cares? I'll drown in my self-loathe or whatever.
Yes.
It's such a, and no wonder we're all so depressed and this. No wonder there's a decline in mental health because it
Okay. Wow. Just wow. I mean, you guys are really dropping some massive humdingers today. You just said, Antonella, you just said when you challenge what you're used to, that's where growth comes in. And then you've just mentioned mental health. We were able to talk about mental health much more freely because of the pandemic. That's the one thing, I believe, the one good thing that, do you feel that your mental health has been challenged? Do you feel that you can talk about it freely? Do you feel it's tied to social media and your addiction to your phone?
I mean, I do feel like there is, again, an improvement. So it's not as taboo as it used to be. But I still don't feel comfortable being like, oh, because I'm feeling really anxious or I feel like I'm mentally not in a good state, because people are like, get over it. It's the old mentality. They're like, you're not depressed. You're just sad and you're over dramatic. Like, let's move on. Let's get on with it. So whenever I'm like, I feel really down. Like I would say I'm depressed, but in the back of my head, I'm like, you're not. You think you are, but you're not. Because that's what people feed you. At least you're a Malta growing up. I never heard of
why ma
mental
get
health.
over it, yeah.
Even like when you fall, when you're young, they're like, get up, you're fine, it's nothing.
Even despite the pandemic?
There's been an improvement after the pandemic, but it's still, I feel, a huge taboo. Like if I had to be in university and go to a lecture saying, I don't think I can handle this assignment because mentally I didn't have the time and I didn't have the space, because I just couldn't. They would not accept. I'm pretty sure, I can't say for sure, but I don't think they would. They would be like, and...
Antonella is nodding because you mentioned before that the pandemic gave you the opportunity to work on yourself and intimated that you had some challenges. Do you feel like we are more open to discussing mental health?
So
Do you think it's something that young people, is it pandemic? Is it its own pandemic in young people?
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
so. And the thing is, I think we're getting better at it, but we're getting better at talking about depression and anxiety. And every other mental illness, no. I've been diagnosed with complex PTSD, borderline, and still, borderline is like, oh, you're like one of those weird evil people in movies. Oh, you're promiscuous. That's why any like bad sexual thing happens to you. And I'm on medication, like psychiatric medication, and I've had people tell me, oh, so you can handle it on your own?
Yes.
And
That's a huge one.
yes.
Going to therapy is
It's like a weakness.
It's like
Yeah.
your breaking point. Lolo, you know she had to go to therapy.
Yeah.
She couldn't handle it on
Yeah.
her own.
Who is
yes.
saying this?
In
People
general,
our
you-
age, in general,
and even if you
Yeah.
don't hear it, you feel it.
But
Yes.
but from your peers or from your parents or from your
From the peers,
teachers?
maybe a bit less, just because I think we're all in the same pool. Like if someone comes to me and is like, "Isma, I had to go to therapy," it's like, "Good for you." Like, but if like I don't know, just an older person who maybe who's not maybe mentally as open, is like, she had to go to therapy. It's still a taboo.
It's like a huge
Even-
thing. I'm like, it's not.
Whereas we discussed in the show Mental Health, Yasmin DiGiorgio said everybody should always go to
Yes.
therapy.
Yes, I
Everyone
believe
should.
that as
Everyone
well.
should.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
And I once read something that said like we are going to therapy because of the people who didn't. Because it's true. When you're going to therapy, like,
profound.
and I love that because I agree. And for example, there is this idea that a lot of people our age are breaking generational trauma and generational cycles, which is true because for once we are becoming more aware of it. Even movies and stuff, they explain and we want to get better, so we're in therapy to get better. But sometimes the older generation, they didn't have that luxury. In a way, they didn't have the opportunity to just go to therapy if they felt like they needed to. But it's so important, and we need to change that, because even I've heard from people my age, like people that are my friends, saying that like, oh, why are you on meds? Why are you going to therapy? It's a waste of money. Like it's everywhere, but it is getting better, but it's still so there. Like physical illnesses, yes, you break a leg, oh my God, everyone's wishing you get well soon. Everyone's visiting you. You have a psychotic episode, a manic episode, everyone talks about you behind your back. I've had an experience where I was in a really bad mental state last year, and one of the people I was living with, who I thought was my friend, instead of helping me through it, I heard she was saying bad things about me behind my back, about what I was going through. And it was so like, it was hurtful, because the people that are, and even nowadays, like you post on social media, oh, mental health awareness, but then no one knows how to deal with mental health issues. No one actually knows. You will post a story, but that doesn't mean you are helping people in
And not
real life.
everyone will care.
No,
By the way, because this is going back to a bit on social media. You're like, oh, mental health, yes, awareness month, share story. But the next second, you're like, lalla, right, dik il-mġnuna.
Yeah, it's true. Like people just don't know how to deal with mental health problems in person. And for example, for me, I speak a lot about mental health and sexual health. And so people like tell me a lot of the times, like, thank you for speaking up. It's really amazing. But then like they know me as I speak about this, and they see me as having control. Like when I first got diagnosed with borderline, so many people were like, no, that can't be. You're so calm. You're so successful. It's impossible. Like, okay, thank you. You clearly know what's going on in my mind, like it's so insane. Just because you're academically or outwardly successful, your mind is in a perfect state.
But you also have a much larger audience than, for instance, when I was growing up, and I had my own mental health issues. I had eating disorders as a teenager. I had therapists, I had psychotherapists, I had all sorts of things, and I experienced that. But my audience who knew about it and knew what was going to happening to me was very, very small, and I could contain it because I didn't have social media. So there is that other element of that. Whereas now, anybody who wants to follow you can practically see what's happening in your life, and that is that I'm just assuming, but it applies to me as well. The pressure of that is phenomenal. I want to move on from this just for a second, and as we're talking, I keep thinking to myself, oh my word, we're going to have another 10 shows with you ladies. You know what I'm saying? We are not even started on this, but I do want to ask you. I'm not wanting to be pessimistic, but I want me as an adult, as a 48-year-old adult, to understand, what is it that scares you the most about the world today? I'm going to come to you because you're shaking your head, Antonella. You're like, I so have an answer.
Okay, so I mean, social media is the first thing. Like, even for example, I have two nephews and a niece, and seeing them grow up with phones, tablets all the time, I'm
Crazy. Uh-huh.
like it scares me because imagine, for example, nowadays I know that if I see like these perfect photos of models, right? I'm like, okay, in reality, no one actually looks like that. But imagine an 11-year-old girl still growing up, still having changes in her life, to seeing that, thinking that that is the reality. Like you're being portrayed this perfect ideal, which is never actually true in real life.
No.
And they're not going to be able to know the difference. Like imagine the mental health problems that that's going to cause. And I fear sometimes like being in an age where you can't do, I mean, I feel like we're already in that age, but where you can't do anything without social media or your phone. Like we're missing the rawness of life sometimes, like that being in nature and having nothing else. So that is one thing that scares me. I mean, climate change scares the shit out of me. Like I know so many people who have told me I don't want to have kids because they're not going to live because the world's going to end by then because of climate change. Like it is such a big fear, like these things. And I think then another fear is just not being able to do what I'm really passionate about. I'm think I'm trying to not get to that stage, but I've had people, for example, tell me, I mean, they care about me, but they tell me, listen, like you're involved in a lot of volunteer organizations, you love speaking out about these things, but this isn't what's going to get you money. Like you need to think about your future, you need to think about money, not what you like. And that to me is like so, like why, like, so that scares me sometimes. I know I'm fighting to be able to do what I'm passionate for, but the idea of money is so terrifying. We were talking about this before, like, and all three of us were like, yeah, money is just scary.
Yeah,
So
exactly. My fears are, I think, three things that scare me the most. Firstly, property. I feel like, I feel like it's getting so expensive. Like in my age, when I get to buy a home, I swear, like a flat in MC, that's gonna probably be like a million euros. I'm not even. It's scary. It's really, really scary. I was comparing. We were having a conversation, me and my mother, a few days ago. I was actually on the way to the dentist, and I was just like telling her about this thing, and she's like, "Well, we bought our home for 90,000 lira, and we were thinking of selling, and the jump from how they actually bought it transferred to you, converted to euros, from how much they would actually sell it now, it's like crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. And that's just something like, I'm going to be, what, 40 until I'm able to afford to get out of my parents' house, which is like not okay for me, at least. Like I want to live independently. Second fear, I wanted to chop on what you said, the rawness of life. Like nowadays, we cannot even let babies be babies. We cannot even let kids like throw their food, mommy, whatever. Now, sit on your tablets, be quiet, and whatever.
yes,
Yes.
You can't wait, and it's not just babies. Even younger girls as they're growing up, I used to love experimenting with makeup and stuff like that. So that is okay. But when you're putting up an image of just a 7-year-old in like already with lashes and like toddlers and tiaras, this pageant
horrible.
thing, it's crazy, it's horrible. And third thing is that when will my kids, especially if they are girls, how they will be treated. Like, you overhear people, you overhear I have guy friends, you overhear guys saying, Lallu, she has a nice personality, but she doesn't have any tits. Like, what's the point? And I'm like, oh my God, what if my kid doesn't have tits? What will she do? Like, I mean, that's not the point, but like, if we are so focused about body, about how tiny our waist is, about how big our hips, about how much our nose is perfect and straight, then what the hell are we doing? Like, it's not about that. Even the way they talk, he's like, lol, man, what a butt she has. Like, no, don't talk about that about my child.
We will talk about that in a second, because to be quite honest with you, the sadness is that hasn't changed for millennia.
That's
Except that now it is much more accessible. But that wanting to obtain perfection and to be physically perfect, whether it be in Victorian times where they had the big and the white painted faces or whatever, that has not changed. But the pressure, I should imagine, with social media is much higher. But going back to this question of what are you really fearful of for the future?
I mean, it's going to sound vague, but living in general, as in, okay, I'm 18, I'm an adult, so to say, but I don't feel like an adult, so I'm learning how to drive a car. If I had to buy a car, what goes into that? If I have a problem with my car, like what the problem is, renting a house, basic things which we're not taught, like taxes and all of that. I'm like, okay, I know how to solve this equation, and I know how to say I would like to do this in French, but if I had to go out into the real world and start like buying a house and like paying taxes and being an adult, in inverted commas, it horrifies me because I feel like I know nothing. So I would like to ideally go live elsewhere, not in Malta. But at the same time, I'm horrified. I'm like, I do not know anything. And I'm like, I'm 18, I'm an adult, I should know this, but I don't. So that's what scares me mainly for the future. Kind of living in general.
We all know what a fibula is, but we don't know how insurance works.
I have no idea.
I mean, like, I know what Y equals X means, a straight line, but what the hell do I do when my tire is flat and I'm in the middle of a node in the middle of the night? What do I do?
I can so give you classes on that.
We need those classes. Like, we need those.
Why we need living classes,
we do. Like, no one teaches you the important things about life. Like, you learn exactly what you said. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
And some of us are fortunate to have parents and, to have family members. Like, the second I get my car, my dad will be like, Isma, this is how you polish it. This is how you... But what if someone doesn't have a dad? What if someone is... adopted or I don't know, who doesn't have those powers, who doesn't have those utilities, those people, like if someone is an orphan, like, it's situations that not only those, but there are so many situations that you can't just rely on other people. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be the education system. Which is, compulsory till 16, that helps you with those things,
And even situations where you do have parents, but you're not close enough to them that you would ask for help. Like, and this is the thing as well. If you're, for example, raised in an upbringing where you do not ask for help, you work, you solve things on your own, how can you expect, like, to be 20 and you're stuck somewhere and then... like you wouldn't be able to ask for help because you've never been free to ask for help. Like, there are just so many situations where the education system has failed us in so many ways, and it needs to be changed. And I mean, even like sex ed, for example, it is like now the last document that's been like working on sex ed was like 10 years ago, I think. Like, it has changed so much. Now they're working on it. There's a survey like, or but it's insane. There was a decade difference. Like, so many things have changed, even within the LGBT community. Like, that's advancing so much, but like the education system is so far behind.
I remember in year 4 they're teaching us how babies are made, and the PSD teacher is changing colors, trying to explain how this goes into that and this happens. And we're all obviously, we're year 4 students.
Everyone's like laughing at her.
So crazy.
Well, in fairness, I'll tell you, that hasn't changed in decades.
But there should be, I feel like there should be a certain assertiveness to it. It's like, it's okay, let's have this conversation. You know what I mean?
There are three things that I want to just ask in this particular show before we come to an end, because I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours, which just means that we need to do it again. All right. And I'm going to get you guys to come back. But the first of that is what really interested me is you spoke about you and the world in general and the anxiety of being in the world in general. You spoke about the pressures that you're under, and only Antonella mentioned the environment and what's happening in the planet, which surprised me because I would have assumed with everything that's going on at the moment that you guys would be maybe a little bit nervous. But you also said, why would you even think about having children when the planet isn't in? Does that ever come on your radar? Does it ever, or is it just too scary to think about?
It's not one of my main concerns for the sole reason that I am not, and it's going to sound horrible, but I'm not interested. It's just not on the front of my mind. It is at the back of my mind. It is like a constant concern where like I wouldn't be able to go have a swim because the water is so polluted, which is so sad, But it's not really there. Like it's not for her. For her, I think it's maybe for you it's more important, I feel like. No, but it is a completely sad thing. I mean, it's scary. It's absolutely, there's no other words to say except it's scary.
For me, when I start to think about it, I'm like horrified, thinking even when I go abroad, just the difference in air. When I come back here, I just feel like suffocated. But then I'm like, I can do my part. I can try to catch a bus if I can. I can walk. I try not to use aerosols and all of that. But I did my part. I can't stay worrying about other people. Is it horrible? Yes. And it is getting worse. But I can only do my part. And not that, this is going to sound wrong, I could like be an activist, not activist, but like speak out about it. But it's, as Mariah said, it's not on the front of my mind. There are things that worry me more currently.
And I think the problem is that, yes, I would probably ride the bus if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
And that's the mentality of most people.
I'm learning to drive a car. Bros, there are so many people that just don't learn how to drive a car just because public transport is so easy and so achievable.
But that's the problem.
But I'm like, but it's not just that. It's a balance of the country's problematic transport system and my own selfishness. I want to have my own car. I want to put in the first gear, second gear, press the brakes. But and it's the readiness of it as well. But at the same time, I'm not helping the environment. I'm being selfish just because I want to experience something for myself. I'd rather wake up at 5 a.m., arrive at 7 a.m. at university and wait till 9 a.m. for my lecture than waking up at 7 and grabbing the bus at 7:15 just to be I'd rather be a slave of myself.
But adore your honesty.
What I say to that is, because this is a conversation I have a lot with my parents. What's my problem with the buses is it's not reliable, and I hate relying on other people. I'd rather be late and say it's my fault. I didn't leave early enough and I drove here. But if I have to get the bus and I leave at 6 and it's supposed to pass at 6:30, 6:45, 7, no bus, that feeling of you can't do anything. And they're like, not my problem.
That's a really interesting point of
I'd
control.
rather be at fault than not be. You know what I mean?
I think it's also a matter of like a lot of the environmental issues, like, and I talked to you about this as well, like a lot of the environmental issues are stemming from generations before us. It's not like we were born like 2 decades ago, like we weren't the ones that created the problem. So there is that feeling of why am I having to suffer the problems that were caused by the people that are older than us? And it's tough, it's like, why do I have to not experience driving a car just because of the companies that did these bad things like 20 years ago?
And still do those bad
And
things.
still do those
And we don't
things.
know better. That's the thing. We're used to, buying from a vending machine a plastic bottle. My nana tells me, we used to have a glass bottle. I'm like, how the hell did you used to use a glass bottle? And now I'm having to adapts to it when it's not really the problem I created, but I have to solve it, and I'm not used used to going back, because this is what I know. This is like I can't have I can't find an example in my mind, but you're get. I mean,
It takes a lot to break the cycles of how we were living before. Like, it takes a lot, and even it's expensive. It's
It is.
expensive
It
to be
is.
eco-friendly. It's expensive to be vegan as well. Like, anything vegan costs like twice as much. Like, it's not just the fact that we have to solve this problem that we didn't even create, but it's expensive for us, and we don't have the resources to. I mean, I live alone, right? Like, with friends, so I have to pay the rent, I have to pay the bills, I have to buy food. Like, sometimes if the less eco-friendly thing is like €5 cheaper, then that's what I have to go with, because
This is a whole show in itself. But I'm glad that we opened the topic, because you have really opened my eyes. You mentioned, Mariah, about how you meet boys or girls, and that's through liking a social media post. And I want to just ask you, is that really the reality of how you meet somebody that you want to engage a relationship with? If you see, whether it be a boy or a girl, how do you go? Because in my day, it used to be that you would kind of, flirt a little bit around the corner, and then you might put, this sort of thing. We didn't have social media, so we didn't have that mechanic to engage through. You talked about liking a post.
What's horrible about it for me is reducing everything to looks. Let's say maybe they're not manipulating pictures and the pictures are true. It's looks. Fine, okay. The first thing you do see is how a person looks.
Exactly.
But there's so much more beneath the surface. And everyone's like, because that girl is a 10 out of 10. Like, this whole rating thing. I'm like,
Lol,
okay,
don't
maybe
get
I'm
me
not a
started
10 out
with
of
the
10. I'm a 6 out of 10. But my personality, I'm like, get to know a person. Like, at the end of the day, when you're old and you're like in your nursing homes, your face will you won't look the way you did. What stays is the personality.
You don't have to be in a nursing home for that to happen, dear.
But at the far end, it's the personality. If you don't enjoy a person's company, it doesn't matter if they look the best they can, which
it's true. And I think I actually was thinking about this like a few weeks ago. I went to the UK for my sister's wedding, and we were having a conversation with like my parents, her husband's parents, and everyone was talking about how they met their partner. All these magical romantic stories about like how they met like 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And I was thinking, almost every girl I've dated, I met her on Tinder. And like, what am I gonna say? Like, my magical story is we swiped.
Magical story is I bought new shoes. I posted them on Instagram. A guy liked it, and the rest is history. And that is like, I tell him, I'm like, it's a funny little story, but it's so boring and sad. What am I gonna say to my children? Oh, your dad, yeah, I dropped his books, he dropped his groceries, and we look into each other's eyes, and you know what I mean?
Ladies-
Everything is getting so fast, and we want everything fast. We don't want to take the time to meet someone, gaze into their eyes, all that romantic stuff. No, just swipe right. Yes,
nowadays
I think
people
though-
after like a month, they're like, okay, because we're dating. Like, everything is so fast. They're like, she's my girlfriend after 2 weeks. I'm like,
It's insane.
You ladies have given me, and I'm fairly sure everybody who's watching this, profound food for thought. I am really taken aback, and it's going to take me a long time to digest everything we've spoken about, and I want to do it again. So I'm going to ask you guys for season 2 if you'll come back, and we'll disseminate every single topic that we've spoken about today. But I'm going to come back to the very first question that I asked you, and in light of this discussion, to close, I'm going to ask you the same question in one line, using a couple of words. Describe to me what it's like to be a young woman in 2022. And I'm seeing Antonella is nodding.
No pressure.
No pressure, but just on the basis of what we talked about, whether it be good or bad, just a couple of words to describe, again, more concisely what we've just spoken about, what it's like.
I think I remain with my first one, like exciting but terrifying. Like, there's there's just so much, as you said, to unpack about being a young person in 2022 that it's exciting. It's exciting that we have a relatively blank slate. You know, there's so much for us to experience still, but at the same time, there are so many problems and there's so much pressure that we need to deal with that it's just think about the future and you're happy one second and you're depressed the other. Like,
I think it's a beautiful mess.
I will continue that and say it is horrifyingly exciting. There are moments which are exciting. I mean, being a female is empowering. I mean, we can have kids. Like, we have a lot more power than we realize, just being a female. So, and the fact that it's spoken about more days is what is so exciting. And what I say is, if we've gotten so far now, imagine how further we could go speaking about women and how powerful we are. But as the other said, it is horrifying because some things don't change. Like as I said in the beginning, just because you're a female, okay, we have to look at your looks and what you wear and how you hold yourself. When you would, if a man wears a suit, you're like, okay, he wore a suit. But if we're going to a wedding, deep down, you know that everyone is judging each and every dress, every woman more, because that was a bit too revealing and that was too conservative. And so that's why I would say it is horrifyingly exciting.
Ladies, I am absolutely thrilled that we did this. I want to say a massive thank you, and I'm going to tell you we're going to do it again. I think we've just scratched the top surface of a massive topic. But I want to say for today, thank you very, very, very much indeed.
Thank you, Miss Trudy Kerr.
Oh, good Lord, no.
My morning starts here with an experience that's unforgettable. A precise roast and a generous crema. Taste the unforgettable Nespresso.